Hey, and thanks and welcome here to CBC Coaching in one of our continuing interview podcast type formats. And what we're trying to do is bring to you people that I'm working with in the field and seeing how they're really moving to a phenomenal level in business and in their personal lives, and how basically the business is bringing them their dreams. That's one of our CBC mission statements there of we like to help our clients reach their dreams. And today I've got joining me a phenomenal couple. I've worked with these people for quite a few years. They're based in the Baltimore, Maryland area, and they run a company. And this is not, I want to clarify this, this is not one of the largest companies I deal with, but I do have to say they are one of the most successful, because what they're doing is everything they're doing is the right thing. And we're going to talk about how ROIs, and we're going to talk about other things today in this presentation. So I'd like to present to you Chuck and Linda Roydhouse. They own Clean Sweep of Anne Arundel County. It's a company that truly does everything with a vision. Everything is planned out. Everything is mapped and taking care of issues and on a path of continuous improvement. So Chuck and Linda, how you guys doing today?
Great. How are you, Jerry?
Hi, Jerry. We're doing great this morning.
I'm doing great too. And, it's a fun, I'm one of the few people who've ever actually had the pleasure in the industry to even meet Linda. A lot of people wonder what's out there. And like I tell them, this is a team. A lot of people look at Chuck, say, man, something else, but it's a team. It's a true team. Chuck, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I would be lost without Linda.
There you go. And that's the whole thing. Their relationship, since I've got to know them, is very close to the relationship I feel like I have with Cheryl in so many ways. And it's really a phenomenal thing when you can see people be partners in business, partners in life, and reach your levels together. So, Chuck, let me ask you a question. What in the world took you into being a chimney sweep and owning a chimney service company? Give me a little background what you got into this for.
Well, Jerry, I was a professional firefighter, and I've since retired. I worked for 25 years for Anne Arundel County Fire Department. And during that time, because we had a lot of off time, I worked every third day, I had a pretty good size landscaping business and snow removal business. And I ran that for about 15 years while I was working at the fire department. And I guess because it was doing pretty well, there was a guy that I worked with that had a one-man chimney operation. And he approached me one day and wanted to know if I would partner up with him so we could build the chimney company to be modeled after my landscaping company. I thought that was a great idea. I saw it as a way to help somebody, and it was also a way to help myself. So I decided to take the plunge. I guess between having my fire department experience and my degree in fire science, I saw it as a perfect fit for something I could actually apply. Unfortunately, a year later, my partner decided that he didn't want to stay in the business and he wanted to pursue his career in the fire department, so he asked me to buy him out, which I did. So then I completely owned it 1 year later.
So I understand. And Linda, you have a background in the medical profession. I actually worked at Johns Hopkins University, I believe, and, had a lot there. And now you deal full-time in Clean Sweep of Anne Arundel County. So what led you to leave the medical profession and go into this in the business with Chuck?
Well, I got my master's in administrative management science at Johns Hopkins University. So while I was a registered nurse, I was doing clinical drug trials. And when our son was born, Chuck and I had both decided that family came first. So it was an opportunity for me to spend time raising my family, helping Chuck, which I was doing already. On my days off when he was away at the fire department, I would help out in the office. So I had a little bit of an inkling of how, everything was running. So it seemed like the logical step with, my attention to detail, us being able to get along, and being able to raise my family. It was, as Chuck said, the perfect fit for both of us.
Yep, and you both, I know you both have similar personalities. I would say that both of you have A personalities, And I think a lot of people wonder how people with A person, when they both have the same A-type personality. But as I mentioned earlier, I think that my wife Cheryl and I both have A personalities also. But I think,
yeah, no doubt. You both, yeah, I know both of you very well. You were both type A personalities.
definitely, definitely. And, you know, and a lot of people wonder, how do type A's get along? And I think that's part of what we're going to see today. And it kind of runs into the next thing, which is, you know, and I'll let either one of you take off with this, but how do you guys define what your individual roles are in the business where you don't, shall we say, step on each other a lot? Like it's one of the problems I counter with a lot. So how do y'all define your roles in the business?
Well, Jerry, I'll take lead on this. Chuck's role is basically strategic planning, deals with the budgeting, efficiency control, warehouse inventory, the vehicle maintenance, field employee management, as well as responding to clients' technical questions and the staffing technical training, where I take a backseat role or of the inner workings. I'm sort of like the guy behind the scenes of doing the marketing and the advertising, the social media content, managing the client database, payroll, office IT consultant, and I also manage and develop our in-house training agenda. I also develop our SOPs and manage the office staff. So it sounds like a lot, but we make it work, and it's been a successful recipe that we're not willing to change.
I understand. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, what I was going to say is by defining the roles, we kind of stay out of each other's way. When I say I don't mean to sound, you know, like an authoritarian, but basically in my mind, I let Linda do what she's good at, and she lets me do what I'm good at. And then when we come to a decision that has to be made, we discuss it, and then we make a decision based on, you know, the logical outcome. And that way there's not a whole lot of fighting or going back and forth. Probably the only time we ever argue is when she takes forever to explain it to me, because I'm a bottom line guy. All I care about is what's the end result? What am I going to get, and what is it going to cost me? And is it worth it? Where her sense is want to be into the every little nitty-gritty of it, which won't affect me because I won't be the one using it necessarily. I'm just the one gaining the benefit and using it as a tool.
Yep. I'm the detailed-oriented one, as you know, Jerry, so it takes me a while to put the whole thing together, where he looks at, you know, being the problem solver, he sees the problem, and he wants the solution, where I try to work through all the steps to get to the solution.
Right. You know, it's a lot of times I know, and people will know Chuck, and they don't know Linda. And I tell them, I said, you know, if you think Chuck's a pretty anal guy, you really need to meet Linda, because Linda's really the one that is down to the exact details. Chuck's anal, but Linda's super anal. So, and it works together. But what you guys described is the perfect thing, which is an organizational chart where everything works together, and then y'all discuss it, come to a joint resolution, and you proceed, which is, I think, one of the secrets you've got there and why it works so good. Now, Chuck, in the last couple years, and one of the things I urged you to do was get involved with a mixed group, which has a lot of different business models. You're not the largest company in that model. In fact, one of the large, you know, there's some very large, you know, companies in that mixed group, but you're an example of a company that's run. It is not a large company, but it has a truly phenomenal ROI. You know, it truly does. And you go to mixed group meetings and you see people that have 20, 25, 35 people on their staff. But in actuality, when I look at true ROIs per truck, you have probably one of the highest in the industry. And it's phenomenal because of all the things you put in. You're spending the money that many much larger companies are to promote and for training, and you're not that large. And your ROI works out at the end of the year. In addition to that, I think that you have probably, if not some of the most highly paid technicians in this industry. I saw what these guys have made over the last month. It's unreal. So What has this taught you in mixed groups? Where have you brought out from mixing with other people like this? How has that been a benefit for you?
The biggest benefit is because of the size of the company that I'm currently running, and my mind is considered small, which is not a bad thing to me. I believe in playing at your own comfort level and maximizing the profit of whatever level you're at. And I'm happy at the level I'm at for management and storage space and everything else that goes with it. What I've seen is a lot of people have the misunderstanding of thinking that, you know, if you have 10 trucks or 20 trucks, you're going to be a millionaire or profitable, and that's not necessarily the way it works. Most of the businesses that I've seen throughout the United States at conventions, talking to people, where people seem to be pretty truthful and honest, where it's a one-on-one conversation, they're big, but they're not bringing in the revenue per truck, and they've created a monster that is just sucking the profit out of their business, and they're not being able to control cash flow, inventory, or have control of their employees. And when you're not in control, it's like being on a ship with a broken rudder. You're just going to kind of aimlessly go around the ocean and not ever get where you're going to go. Basically, the biggest thing that I like to do is, because of my personality, I have to be actively engaged in all aspects of my business operation, from cash flow management to employee and equipment readiness, as well as I'm watching marketing, advertising, and seeing the successful results. If I see something that's not successful, we stop it. We analyze everything we do. I watch my numbers on a weekly basis. I watch a lot of numbers on a daily basis, and then, of course, at the end of the month. But I don't wait to the end of the month to review everything, because that's kind of like, you know, closing the barn door after the horses have run out. Then it's too late sometime to make a correction. So I try to review everything weekly, but because I'm here every day, I know where my trucks are, I know what my deposits are, I know what my cost of goods sold is, I know what my inventory is. Then I kind of have a thumbnail sketch in my head of knowing where I'm at on a daily basis, and definitely at the end of the week, I know where I'm at all the time.
You know, and that's great. You know, one of the things, because I've got clients that are in your mixed group besides you, and I know one of the things, you guys have a new motto in that mixed group you're in, which is purple is the new color of green. You take that, well, they do. I mean, everybody is looking at you like, hey, how is he doing this? Because these guys know your return, and they're looking at this like, what is it, you know, how does he do this? And you're trying to get them, but it's hard to get the message across sometimes. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I've experienced all different aspects of this. You know, in my first year of having the business, you know, as a partner, I grew it 100%. And after the year of having total control, I kept doubling the revenue and grew the business from a one-man truck all the way up to 4 chimney trucks and 2 air duct cleaning trucks, and I had 12 employees. But since that period, I've kind of honed in on what the profit centers were in this business, and I've scaled back to 3 chimney trucks, which have, each truck has a CSIA certified lead tech, and then I have a helper. So I have basically 6 field employees running 3 trucks. And that is the leanest, most efficient mode for me at present time.
Right. And you know,
basically, by doing that, I can achieve my goal. I have basically an internal goal that drives me of having like a 20% ROI on my investment. And that's all that drives me. And if I could do that with 1 truck, 2 trucks, 4 trucks, it doesn't matter. It's the number I have to hit. And that's where it's an example of bigger is not always better. You got to remember, Jerry, it's always about the profit. And you must keep, you know, your business and personal money separate so you can understand the true value of your business. That seems to be a common theme. A lot of people kind of intermix their monies and they don't understand kind of what's going on. You have to set this up to where you're like working at IBM and you're getting a salary commensurate with the time. Well, you'll never get it probably for the actual time you put in, but for what a CEO or a general manager or whatever you want to call yourself should be paying, and the person that's running the office is paying. But besides all that, you've got to have profit at the end of the year, or it's really all you've done is you own yourself a job where you're your own boss. And if that's all you're looking for, that's great, but that doesn't fund your retirement. That doesn't plan for the future. If something were to happen 10 years down the road and you could no longer work, you have to have kind of all those things taken care of.
Right. Chuck, I want to identify something you just said, and I want people to be very, very aware of and interpret this. Your goal is a 20% return on the investment for the business. Clarify if that does or does not include what you and Linda are paid as salary.
No, that doesn't include what we're paid as salary. We have very, very comfortable salaries for each of us, but I expect to have about a 20%. I shoot for 20. Anything above 15 is considered meeting or getting close to the goal, and that's usually where we hit, is 15 to 20% above and beyond what we're being paid.
So, Chuck, if you had a business and it was paying you a comfortable salary but was not delivering you profits of above 10%, what would be your action?
I would try to figure out why I'm not getting the profit. I would be looking at my cost of goods sold. I'd be looking at my labor expense. If I had a rental expense or a mortgage on a building, if I owned it, I'd be looking at all those numbers to find out where is the money going. And most of the time, the money is there. It's you're not managing it or you're not controlling it. And the biggest robber of that is time and lost equipment that you can't account for, or products. I control my warehouse. Now, I trust my guys, and I've always had great guys, and the current ones I have now, I trust them. But there's also not really what you would call stealing, but inadvertent stealing that goes on. If you have somebody that has total access, just willy-nilly walking in and out of your warehouse, they could be legitimately taking the stuff off the shelf on the truck and selling it, but if it's not inventoried or I don't know it's gone, then all of a sudden I need it and then we don't have it, and then it's a problem. Then we're rescheduling work, and that's not how we roll here. So, if these guys need something, basically every truck when they go out, we have what we call an inventory restocking sheet. So at the end of the day, that gets turned in. So every time they need a tube of caulk because they used it today, or fireplace cement, or Surwool, or sold a chimney cap, or anything else off the stock trucks, then I pull everything that evening after they leave, and we have a staging area where I set everything up for each individual truck. So when they come in, they'll have either a pallet, or if it's just a couple of items, we have like a long work desk where everybody has all their plug-in items like the chim scans and all the batteries and everything else that have to be charged. They come in every evening. That way when I walk by, I can see the condition of the tools. I can see that everything is on charge. I can tell if something's starting to wear or fray. And I'm doing that in a climate-controlled building as opposed to like crawling around a truck, in my garage, where it's a little darker, maybe it's cold, maybe it's real hot if it's in the summer. But anyway, this gives me total control of knowing the condition of their equipment, and then where we have our stock room, which is like a 40 by 40 building, then I go in there, they'll go in with me if it's something heavy and they'll get it, but that's where we have all our product, and I have it all laid out in different spots, so when I look, I know what I have. Well, if I just had it thrown in there, then I wouldn't know what my inventory was. If I let people go in there and just grab something, Then when I need it, somebody calls me up and says, hey, I just sold an air jet chimney, bring me one, because that's one of the few things we don't carry on the trucks because the box is so large. I'll run it to them. Well, if I go in there and somebody took one last week and didn't tell me it was missing, well, now I got to call the client and say we can't do it today. So then you disappoint someone. When you disappoint them, usually they decide not to buy, or they'll make up excuses, or we'll schedule to go back because they still need it, and it'll be raining that day, so we can't do it. So it's just inefficient, and that's pretty much what how we control the inventory, and the guys like it. They're not responsible for anything other than what's on their truck.
Okay, Chuck, one of the things that you do that I think helps you is, would you tell the people that are listening, around 8 o'clock every morning you do something with the trucks? Would you explain what that is and why you do that?
Sure. All of my equipment, I have a building that's almost 300 feet long, so everything I have is housed and garaged. And every day what I'll do is I'll go down to the end of the building, which is where the garage space is, and I'll pull the trucks up to the garage door. And the reason why I do that is I get to start them. I do a 360 circle around them. I'm looking to see if the tires look like they're inflated right, any body damage, did they put any silicone hand on my very expensive wraps. I'm looking to make sure there's no cracks in, mirrors or, windshields or anything else. The lights are working, etc. But then I can also hear how the engine's running. Each one of my trucks has an Exxon fleet gas card. I make sure that's kept where it's supposed to be kept. If it's missing, I need to know about that right away, so I check that every morning. I drive the truck, so I hear how the motor sounds. I hear if the brakes are squealing or anything else. That's on a daily basis. I'm looking at the interior of the cab, the back of the truck, the compartments, that type of thing. So usually one day a week, I'll pick one truck and do mostly what we used to call a PM check in the fire department, which is preventative maintenance. Well, I don't go to the extent that we did there, but I'll pull a truck up, and I'll open up every cabinet door, because I have utility body trucks, so they look like sort of an ambulance. And I'll open it up, and I know what goes in every compartment because I laid the trucks out. So I can tell if something's missing. I can see if it's clean. I can see if something looks like it's broken or starting to wear. We carry all our heat shield equipment on every one of our trucks, so if they have an opportunity that somebody says, do it now, we do it now, I know that the foam cuts that we carry are in good shape, or the offset pulling head is in good shape and not bent or, didn't get cleaned off or anything else. And then I check their rolling stock and match that against what they told me the night before, just to make sure somebody didn't pencil whip it. So I'll pick a truck and do that on a different day, and the other ones I just do a quick overview. So by the end of the week, I've seen all the trucks inside and out completely, and then I'm not left, on the short end. I like to be ready.
Yep.
And then we,
man, let me throw something in. While you're doing all this, tell me about your belief in having spare equipment in case of breakdowns.
Yeah, well, basically, I have one complete chimney truck, totally outfitted, that if the guys called me up and say, hey, we just blew a tire, we're on the side of the road, I can jump in this truck, drive it to them, they can get out of their truck, take their personal items such as their goggles, respirator, gloves, and their clipboard, get in that truck and leave, and it's like it never happened. All of the trucks are the same body style. They're all laid out identically. They all have the exact same equipment on them. So it's basically just like what they got in the morning. They get a clipboard, and other than having to grab their gloves in this case and their respirators, then they jump in a new vehicle and they're down the road. So I never lost a beat. Maybe we're going to be a half hour late to the client, but when that situation happens, because I know the service area that we service so well, and how much time it gets from every point that they could be at from point A to point B, and I know how long it's going to take me, say, to go meet them, then I can get either Linda or Shannon, our administrative assistant, to call the client and say, hey, we're on the way, might be a 20-minute delay, the truck's, had a little mishap, but we'll be there shortly. And then I don't lose the money. It's the most efficient way to run it. On top of that, I have probably enough equipment in my warehouse set out in different parts of where it needs to be so I can see it to outfit a complete other truck. I have spare ladders. I have spare chimney rods. I have spare brushes, vacuums. I have 3 additional vacuums. I usually have 2 brand new vacuums in the box, and I'll have 1 or 2 that are older vacuums that we've replaced with new ones, but they still work. Somebody calls me up, vacuum broke down, I can grab this thing, it's ready to go. It's been serviced, has a new bag in it, clean inside out, it's grab it and run. I don't like to lose opportunities. You don't get opportunities all the time, and then when you disappoint clients, their time is very valuable. They've taken off from work, or they've rearranged their schedule, somebody else is going to ballet or a Boy Scout meeting instead of the regular person, so they can be there to meet you. You don't need to tell them, gee, we can't finish the job, I don't have the right ladder, my vacuum broke, so we're going to have to come back. That's part of the reason that I try to stay here as much as I can. I'm at the ready for a rapid response if something was to go south. As far as the client knows, there's nothing more than a hiccup if they even know that. A lot of times things will happen and the guys will be on a repair job. They'll move to they'll call me up and say, I don't know, the cement mixer just broke. We can't mix Thermex. I'll tell them, finish what you got by hand. I'll bring you another mixer. Do the water repellent and the flashing or something so they don't lose their time. And then by the time I get there and set up a new cement mixer and take the old one away, it's like the client never even knew it happened.
And that's what's truly phenomenal here is, Chuck, if one of your trucks was totaled, teetotal, just completely demolished in an accident tomorrow, as long as the guys on the truck were not injured, it is business as usual within an hour. And
that's correct.
And when you look at it, and I know from dealing with you, every time there's a problem, every single problem. And, I deal differently with different clients. But a vast majority of the time that you and I spend together is how to act, not react. Every time there's a problem, you're a shining example, and Linda too, of how do we prevent this from reoccurrence? How do we do this? And on top of all this, you're sitting here with a phenomenal return of 20% on the business. So it can be done. And on top of that, I'm going to throw in also, you are a company that has no debt. Am I correct?
Yeah, Linda and I have worked very, very hard, and we have no personal or corporate debt whatsoever, and it's been that way for quite a long time.
And if I'm not mistaken, if you buy a new truck, there is no financing. Chuck,
I don't finance them. I pay for them and I buy in pairs. When I replace a truck, I'll replace them 2 at a time, and that way, whatever we're upgrading to, those 2 trucks always match. And usually, usually there's not a big change between what we're replacing and what we had. This go around where I went to the big box vehicles, the utility trucks. We used to be in large service vans, regular Ford like F-350s, and we just didn't have enough room to carry all the stuff. Because I don't like to go back. My trucks carry air compressors, generators, everything to do a job, one-stop shopping. The only time we ever send a second chase vehicle is if we're installing like a pellet stove or a wood stove. I've got a box truck with an Escalera, and we load the stove on there and the liner kit and everything else, the big bulky stuff. Other than that, everything that's on my trucks, I can do relines, heat shields, everything under the sun. If we're pouring Thermex, then we got to send the box truck calling the Thermex, or actually I have a pickup truck as a utility vehicle that we'll use for something like that. But I try to be as efficient as I possibly can. My guys can do anything on any job. They can pre-treat, they can row clean. We carry 40-foot ladders, we carry 28-foot ladders. They carry all the heat shield stuff on the truck. We have the air compressor, so we can do the heat shields for factory foam sealant. There's a lot of jobs we'll go to where that's all someone will need after we do the sweeping and inspection. And, you know, maybe they'll have some exterior things that'll need to be done, and the only thing that happened is their smoke chamber isn't parged. And if they want it done, they'll call me up and tell me they're doing a parging, and they're going to be another, you know, hour or whatever it's going to take to do whatever they need to do at that time. And then I'll reroute. If they tell me that means they're not going to make it to their last afternoon job, then I'm anticipating giving that to one of the other crews. And the other crews know that because they all work that way. They know they have to pick up the slack. If some guy makes a big sale and the person wants it done, we're taking advantage of the opportunity of doing it now. I'm not waiting. And we've got the weather on our side. We're getting it done today, and they know that that might end up being a sweeping job added to another crew, and they don't have a problem with it because one day, you know, they're going to sell and need somebody to help them. We work as a team here.
Okay. Let me throw this one at you, Chuck. This is an opportunity you to give sound advice to business owners. It could be a new business opening. It could be one that's been in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. But they're listening to you right now. They're hearing debt-free. They're hearing good salaries. They're hearing highly compensated techs and a 20% return. And on top of that, spare equipment, no breakdowns, everything else. So, Chuck, tell me 3 things you would advise any business owner that wants to move in the position you are, irregardless of the size of the company, 1 truck or 20. What would you tell them, Chuck?
Probably what I was raised on is what I call the 3 Ds: discipline, dedication, and determination. I've learned that you've got to be disciplined in every aspect of your personal and business life. If you're not disciplined in it, then something's going to be left to chance, something's not going to get taken care of, and then it starts a snowball effect. You've got to establish early on in your life what your core values are and your goals, and you've got to stick to them with no retreat or no surrender, because nobody's going to be there to help you. Nobody's going to keep pushing you to do it. You've got to get that from within. I also believe you've really got to be dedicated in your beliefs and the path that you're on. If you're not dedicated to it, you won't follow it. It's hard work. It's like an exercise program. You know, none of us want to get up and go to the gym every day, and if you don't make yourself do it, you know, day in and day out, you're not going to get, you know, the cause and effect that you want from it. And so you've got, and then lastly, you've got to be determined to accomplish your goal. No matter what the sacrifice is, you've got to complete the mission. You know, I'm not going to lie to you. There's days where I'm like, oh, man, I wish I could sleep another hour. I know I can't. If I don't get down here to my office early enough to where I'll have a solid hour in the morning to do things that I can't do during the day because I'm constantly interrupted. We have things that go on here, and the game changes all the time. And you can't say, well, I'll get to work a little late and I'll do it between 9 and 10. You know, I could have, you know, people cancel jobs or call up and reschedule or whatever, and then I'm scrambling with my will call list of, you know, backfilling them, and then that'll eat up that hour that I allotted. So I try to come in, you know, by 6:30 in the morning, so I've got about a good hour to go over things where no one else is here, the phones aren't ringing. If I have to do email correspondence, I'll try to do some of it then so I can think while I'm typing. So that's where you've got to be determined, and that's the kind of sacrifices you have to make.
That's great, man. I'm going to tell you, that's what makes me so proud of you, brother, as you coach, whatever, friend, you know, because I'll be honest with you, I feel like our relationship is much more than a coaching relationship, and you two are very important to me. Now, let me ask you this, Chuck. Somewhere in your life, somewhere there had to have been a magic moment that, you know, that inspired you to do this, that gave you this drive, this will. Can you put a finger on what that magic moment was? I mean, what was it that drove you to, I'm going to say, the excellence you strive for? Did you have a magic moment?
Well, a lot of it had to do with the way I was raised, but as far as a magic moment finding out about numbers, I've always been a numbers guy, even growing up. I started working and cutting grass when I was 8 years old. I've always liked money because I liked what money would give me. Money buys you freedom. The joke is you end up being a slave to make the money, and then you have no freedom. So you have to kind of try to balance that if you can. As far as in business, the biggest magic moment I could say would be meeting Tom Grandy in 1996. He kind of had what I call the magic bean I was looking for. From the time I was a kid in my landscaping business and the early years of having the chimney business, I kept knowing and looking for something out there to tell me what am I missing, because I would deal with, you know, people I went to college with that had MBAs. I would be dealing with, you know, seasoned business owners, accountants, lawyers, everybody else, and I kept saying, there's something missing. You know, we're not accounting for everything as far as our true costs, and I don't like waiting to the end of the year to see how I've made out, or running this as a guessing game and then figure in depreciation, this, that, and the other thing. Well, then I met Tom Grandy, and basically he has a program. And the program is you go in and you answer a bunch of questions. Now, when I first did it, this was back in the dark ages, we did it by pencil and paper. We did a real quick down and dirty at one of the conventions. I don't know if it was in Atlanta or Myrtle Beach. I can't remember. I think it was in Atlanta. And if you knew your numbers, which I do, I pretty much have a P&L in my head, so I could fill this out pretty accurately, and the bottom line was by the time you were done filling out, you know, I think it was maybe 12 simple questions that you would key on, it was telling you what you needed to charge per hour. And there was people in the room that you could hear gasps. You know, it was kind of like you need to charge $100 an hour, and these people are charging $35, and basically you're bleeding yourself slowly to death. So after I was able to, you know, buy into his way of thinking, which was what I was looking for, so it wasn't much of a buy-in on my end, put my numbers into his program, which then later went on computer, and now, of course, it's on computer. I mean, when I first had his program was on DOS. You know, we went from pencil to DOS to Windows, so basically you go through and use your P&L statement and you answer a bunch of questions on how many vehicles, employees, how long they're going to last, you know, time off from work, et cetera, et cetera. The point is it accounts for everything that goes on in your business. And at the end, it spits out a number. And it tells you what you need to charge, either percentage for markup or what you need to charge per hour. And by doing that, you have your salary covered, your employee salary, all your benefits, and you're basically setting up a savings plan by accounting for wear and tear on equipment. If he'll ask you, like, okay, you have a service van, and it's $20,000 and it's going to last 10 years. Well, a certain percentage of your dollar per hour, maybe you're charging $100 an hour, and $1 of that is going to replacing that truck. So in theory, 7, 8, 9 years down the road, when it comes time to replace it, you should have money sitting in an account to go in and pay cash for it. Now, the only flaw that I found in his program, and I asked him about it, was you're not allowed to keep all the money. The government wants their share. So realistically, the 100% that I'm saving, I'm only keeping 70 for the truck. So he had two answers. One is, would you rather put 70% down and only finance 30, or you increase the number by 35%, and then you will have enough money to do it. I increased it by the 35, 37%, so with the taxable rate, that brought me down to I had the money in reserve that when it was time to replace a vehicle, we could finance it ourselves and not have to borrow money.
That's
So,
I'm sorry, Chuck. Keep going.
oh, that's all right. Go ahead.
Okay. So it kind of brings me into a question here, which is you run a business based on numbers, and you run very in-depth analysis to get to those numbers. So, and one of the things that I tell everyone is in a in a business, you got to have a budget. So tell me, what is what do you feel about this? If a business does not have a budget showing both expense and income sides, and part of your budget, if you would, even go into your analyzation of the number of days you're going to lose a year due to weather, whatever, how many days you're going to be on job site. Give me a little insight into how Chuck does a budget.
Okay. Before I start that, there's one last thing I want to add to what I was just telling you about Tom Grandy. There was a second part of an aha moment for me, was what I call the cherry on top. So being as squared away as I thought I was with Tom Grandy, another Tom said something to me one day, and that was our good friend Tom Urban. And he told me that he started breaking down his hourly rate to a cost per minute. And like a light bulb went off. And then I was embarrassed that I didn't think of that myself. So here's what I mean by that. So if you're taking, let's just say you have an hourly rate of $360 an hour for two guys on a truck. And we all know the guys will come back and say, well, what did you charge them for, so-and-so? Well, it was just a small thing. I did it in 10 minutes. Didn't cost us. I really couldn't charge them for 10 minutes. Didn't really matter. Oh, really? So if you're charging $360 an hour for two guys on a truck and they take 10 minutes to do something kind of small, then that just cost the company $60. And if you're running multiple trucks and that happens 5 times a day, that's $300 a day you've lost in non-billable hours and material. And if that happens 5 times during the week, that's $1,500 that week that you lost. If you multiply that by 50 weeks out of the year that you work out of 52, that's $75,000 of money that you didn't recover. It's kind of like eating a grape in the grocery store. Well, what's one grape? Well, the problem is the grocery store has 10,000 people that come in a day. If they went through 10,000 single grapes, that would add up to some serious grapes, wouldn't it? Now, if you walked out with a case of grapes, they would arrest you. So those are the kind of things that we started focusing on in like the last 2 to 3 years to really break it down that way, because there are a lot of small things that you do that is of value, and my time and my employees' time is something that I'm selling. That's basically what we're selling. So that's all I wanted to add to that, and I thought that was key. That was something that made a huge difference in pulling away from what I called, a profit suck. There was all these little things that were being done that no one would account for, and that's helped boost our revenue.
Yep, and it's amazing because you brought up what you learned from 2 different times. One was a financial expert, and the other was an associate in business, and that's part of one of the advantages is listening to other people and getting gold nuggets like you do from people like that. So touch on the budget for me. How do you feel like, what's the importance of the budget? What businesses wouldn't need a budget, Chuck?
Every business needs a budget. A budget's probably one of the most important things you have to have. You can't run a business really without one. True budgeting is based on, a lot of previous history. You have to think of it kind of like as a routing map or routing system for the future. A budget's kind of like a map, which is a plan and a track, and it gets you from point A to point B. The thing that you have to understand, the budget, it can't be totally black and white rigid. You have to set it up. It has to be realistic, but you have to also be able to make course corrections. Kind of like if you're driving down the road and you have detours and you've got to make these corrections, to kind of compensate. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul, because when you do that, then that kind of has a cause and effect like a snowball rolling down a hill, and it affects other changes or other things you were going to do. So you can't just willy-nilly decide one day, oh, gee, it's November, we're really fat. Man, I really wanted to buy that, such and such tool. It's, $10,000, or man, now's the time to buy that new pickup truck. You can't think like that. You have to be responsible. Budget is like you're driving down the road, and the budget is the guardrails on each side of the road, and it kind of keeps you out of the weeds in the ditch. As you're driving down the road and there's a pothole, you make a course correction. You swerve around it so you don't drive through the pothole, but then you get back on the road. Excuse me, you don't go into the weeds. And by going into the weeds would be making an unnecessary purchase, or a purchase that wasn't allocated that you're really not going to get the return on. Budgets are something that kind of help you obtain your goals through strategic financial planning, I guess is how I look at it. And you've got to be proactive, and you've got to provide the best information to make the best decisions that you can to meet your business plan. And that's basically what a budget does. It's kind of like a rule book. It's something to keep you honest. You set it up based on historical knowledge of what things have happened in the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So anybody that can't tell you what they're going to spend on their gas and electric bill in their corporate office, is not thinking of it correctly. They should know. Unless something's really crazy going on with the power grid, we should know. Last year we spent $1,000. The year before was $900. This year we know we're going to spend $11. That's how you make up your budget, and then and then you watch the budget and see if things are getting out of kilter. And if something's getting out of kilter, you need to know why. Is it an inefficiency? Is it missing materials, or did something happen that we didn't account for? It's just like at home. If you pay a city water bill and you usually pay $20 a month, and all of a sudden you get a $75 water bill, well, then either you've got a broken pipe, somebody's got something running, or your next door neighbor's stealing your water, or God knows what, but you better look into it. Well, that's what you have a budget for. You know what your different job classifications or expense classifications are going to be, and when that happens, something that looks out of kilter should be a red flag, and then you investigate what's going on.
That's
and that's pretty much how we look at it.
Right, and that's all gold. I'm just hoping everybody listens to this. Well, Linda, you've been kind of quiet over there for a while, so I'm going to direct a question to you. You guys, to me, and I work with a lot of married couples, and you guys are kind of like an example of how you can be married, life partners. You can also be business partners and work together. How do you attribute this, Linda? What's the secret here?
Well, Jerry, Chuck and I have been, we're really good friends, and that's the key. We're the perfect complementary for each other. We're each other's yin and yang. We respect each other's strengths and weaknesses. We value and trust each other's opinions, and that's in our personal life as well as the business. And we're both, as you said before, we're both very anal and detailed oriented, so that helps. That we have very similar beliefs, core values, and we're on the same path. The biggest thing is that we know that we agree that we're going to disagree sometimes. But when tough decisions need to be made, then we know we need to do it together. We share, and work for a common goal as well as with our employees. And that seems to be the right recipe for our success, I believe. Working in a business is like a marriage. You have to have the give and take. You have to have a strong foundation. And have the trust and respect for each other's work, giving each other their own space, and then coming together when you need to make decisions.
That's it. So tell me this, Linda. Like I said, most of these people have never met you and they don't know how phenomenal you are, but I do because I have, and I've worked with you too closely. So if you had a wife that was in the business like you are, and she was unhappy, it was just really not working, what would you tell this wife?
One, you got to keep a sense of humor and not take work, I guess, the work stuff with you back home. Whatever stressors are at work, you don't take them personally. It's something that you have to keep your personality and your heart off your sleeve kind of take. You don't want to compete with one another, and you have to look at it as working together as a whole for a common core goal. The biggest key is you got to really appreciate one another's strengths and weaknesses, I think. You have to respect each other's boundaries. Again, it's what we do, I think, for our success is you have to work as a team. And you can't keep you have to have your personalities out of it. And you've got to leave your ego at the door and allow each other to have their own time, you know, to do their own thing. Working 24 hours and being with somebody is a lot. So you have to be able to have, you know, sometimes Chuck will be out of the office. I do my best work in the evening. He does his best work early. So sometimes I'll stay late, and sometimes he will be in earlier than me. And that helps keep a balance where we're not like in each other's face for 24 hours. You also have to have some time where you also leave work at work and focus on just, you know, yourself.
Yep. You know, Linda.
Hopefully that helps.
It helps. Sometime, Linda, I hope you'll come out of the office and some people will get to meet you and understand, you know, how truly remarkable you two guys are as a team, because I've seen it. You know, you have. Okay, Chuck, give me some advice here. We got people listening. I know you have a really hard time accepting this, but you have actually become a role model as you have, I will say, come out of your shell. You were a very, very private person when I first got to know you. And we even kidded about this. And I know that I have pushed you probably in the areas that you weren't comfortable with, going into mixed groups, getting involved. You used to sit in the back of the room, and nobody knew who you were. I didn't really till I came there and visited with you. It's like, good God, what have I walked into? Much more than I ever envisioned the first time I visited with you guys. So here, you know, this is an opportunity for you. How do they be successful, Chuck? What have they got to do to be successful?
Well, thank you for the kind words, Jerry. I still do have a problem accepting that. And you're right, other than probably 4 or 5 people like, you know, Tom Urban and, you know, a couple other ones, Pete Luter, that kind of thing, that knew me, that I would get to see at conventions and different training opportunities, and I really got along great with them and loved talking to them. No one else knew who I was, and that was fine. I'm not one that really needs the limelight. As long as I'm accomplishing what it is I've set out to accomplish, and it's profitable, then that's pretty much the only accolades I really need. But I guess to answer your question, it's one concept, and that's personal drive to succeed. Nothing has ever been handed to me. My parents did nothing but give me opportunities only. You know, I grew up with 2 phenomenal parents, had, you know, nice, you know, middle-class upbringing, that type of thing, but I had to work. I had chores. I had responsibilities from the time I can remember. And basically, my parents gave me what I call opportunities to do things. What I chose to do with them was up to me, and I had to make the most of them. Whether that be, you know, in the Boy Scouts where I obtained the rank of Eagle Scout, or I had, fortunately, the opportunity for my parents to be able to send me to college, and I was on the dean's list the entire time I was in college. Basically, my parents, from the time I can remember, they instilled in me the need to be independent and my thoughts and my beliefs and set my own course in life. And they've always told me, lead, never follow, and basically stick to the 3 Ds of discipline, dedication, and determination. And then I also found out as I kind of, I guess you would say, matured, and this was one of the things that was happening at the time that I approached you about being my coach, is I realized after watching some other people that I had pretty much hit my glass ceiling. As good as you might make this sound that I am today, and I guess it's okay, I wanted more. And everybody reaches the point of no return that you need somebody else to give you a helping hand up. So I've been trying to surround myself with positive people that are moving to the next level. And I'm not just talking about, fellow business owners. That can't be just who you hang out with. You've got to have, a strong and trusted core of advisors for marketing, advertising, and coaching. There's a lot of people that if you really, put your shoulder to the wheel, you can get a lot of stuff done, but you'll only get so far. And if you want to get to the next level, unfortunately, for someone like me, because I'm not one that likes help, you need help. And whether that's, hanging out with the Mark Stoners of the world that can tell you things that, because he is so many steps ahead of me and has been down the trail that I'm on now, he can help me avoid some problems, and other people do the same thing. That's what you do. Marketing people, I'm a very black and white guy. I'm sort of paramilitary from being in the fire department. I have one way of thinking, and you need somebody that thinks like a client. You need somebody that knows about advertising. I mean, we make fun in the chimney industry of people that will go to and, they went to Tractor Supply, bought a wood stove and some kit and put it in, and we're laughing because they didn't insulate the liner or making fun of them or whatever. Well, why would we do the same thing? I don't know really a whole lot about marketing as far as, being educated on it, collegiately. My marketing experience is what I've paid for to try to see if it worked, and up until recently it was just a guess. Now I have people drilling down on the numbers, so I know what does and what doesn't work. And it's much more cost effective in what we're doing now by having this person help us. So we have a marketer, we have an advertiser, actually we have 2 companies that are doing it for us, and then of course we have you as the coach. And you can't allow yourself to become stagnant. That just won't work. It's not 1950 or even 1980 anymore. Things change so much. There's a huge disconnect with my employees. Most of my employees are 25 to 30 years old, and I'm almost 54. And, just like you, Jerry, you're just a little older than me. We remember when there wasn't, cell phones. We remember when people didn't have answering machines. All that's basically new technology from sort of like 1980 forward. 1979, if you called a customer to remind them you were coming out tomorrow, you were hoping somebody was going to be home to answer the phone because they didn't have an answer machine. Or you'd be calling them, from 6 to 8 o'clock in the evening when they were home for dinner. And, things change. People don't eat dinner anymore, like a family like they should. And, they have so many activities going on. Well, now everybody's got a cell phone. So you've got to keep up with technology. You can't kind of fall behind. Same way with, plug-in Tom Urban again, ChimScan, You've got to get those cameras in the chimneys. I mean, that is what is going to really, really make a difference. Biggest thing we do is repetitive and continuing education, and you have to do that for yourself and your employees. You can't really, lay back and think you know everything. I mean, I think chimney-wise, I'm a pretty smart guy. I have a degree in fire science. But I know I don't know everything. So, I constantly take courses, and I also know that because of all the distractions in life, whether they're personal or corporate, you tend to forget things. So it's nice to take a chimney physics class again that you might not have done 5 years for the last 5 years, because something will be, brought up that like, oh yeah, you know what, we should be doing that, or didn't think about saying it that way. I'll take a lot of classes over and over again, sit through the same lectures. It's kind of like reading a book. I'd love to tell you that I read books all the time, but I never liked reading, and I don't have time to read books. So when I travel, I'll buy books online, Zig Ziglar and Larry Wingate and different people like that, and listen to those, when I'm driving to Indianapolis for like board meetings and that kind of thing. And that gives me a time where I'm left alone and kind of being able to reflect on what they're saying and try to put it into place. But I never throw them away or sell them or give them to anybody. I'll listen to them again next year when I'm going somewhere, and it just kind of reinforces it. The other thing that I've always tried to do in my life is lead by example. You can't expect someone to do something you are not willing to do. I learned that very early in life in the Boy Scouts, and it was reinforced in the fire department. The officers in the fire department who were respected the most were the guys that you knew could do the job. Whether it was physical or mental, these guys never asked you to like throw a ladder by yourself if they couldn't do it. It wasn't theory guys, it was guys that could get it done. So that's what I've always tried to do, is these guys know that I might not be able to physically do a lot of the stuff now because I got beat up so bad in the fire department. I can't do all the stuff I used to, but they know I did. They've seen pictures of me doing it on jobs in the past. The biggest thing, too, that we've been working on in the last couple of years is, focusing on clients' needs, thinking like the client, and teaching my guys to establish a relationship with the clients. We're not just here to like sell something to sell it. We're here to solve problems. We want to know why your chimney's not performing well, or what's going on, and say the exterior of why you've got a water leak, or just regularly the decomposition. And we like to educate people and let them know about that. The biggest thing, too, is always let your staff know how much you value them and appreciate their work. And then you don't make things hard on people that work for you. We try to do everything in the office to take all the guesswork out of the guys. We have a lot of, formulated SOPs that they follow. We constantly talk about those. And then as far as getting back to equipment, all of our trucks are fully equipped to handle all the normal duties and then some that they would run into during the day. And as I said earlier, we've got redundant trucks and equipment at the ready. I don't want frustrated employees that are like, oh my God, I pulled up to this job and I don't have the right drill or whatever. I got to call and tell him to bring a drill. He's not going to be happy or whatever. Each one of the trucks carry extra equipment in case something small breaks. They've got a reserve drill on board. I don't have to take them a drill. Something major like a generator, an air compressor, there's not enough room to haul duplicates. So we keep duplicates on site, and I'll take it to them. Because I know things are going to break. Things are going to wear out, and it's going to be at the worst possible moment. And you've got to understand your tools are your livelihood and is the opportunity gateway for you to make profit. So if you don't take advantage of having the tools, then you don't get to go through the gate to collect the cash. That's pretty simple.
I heard a couple words as you were speaking: relationship building and understanding water entry issues and how you turn that into sales. Where'd you hear all that at, Chuck?
Well, my good friend Uncle Jerry.
Okay, let's move on. About 2 years ago, 18 months ago, I can remember you and I having a telephone call, and I kind of challenged you at that point. And it was a scary challenge I gave you because I found out how much money you were spending on Valpak mailers and how much money you were spending to give away and give a discount on what you do. Do you remember that conversation?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so how scary was that for me to tell you, Chuck, stop spending that money and let's move to the next level and develop electronic marketing, get a class website up because you have a son that had done your website, and then even further got you involved with a company called Direct Connect. All this was scary as all get up because I'm telling you to totally change the way you've done business and start going after a higher caliber of customers. I think it was right after you had went from white trucks to purple trucks. I think it was kind of like a phase we went through. And I think I was probably still working. I was still working to establish trust with you. But was that scary, and or would you do it over again?
It wasn't as scary as you probably think. It was a little worrisome, but I already knew what I was doing wasn't working because I'd been tracking everything. It used to be that I had like half-page ads and like 5 or 6 phone books, and I was doing Valpak and Money Mailer. And my phone rang off the hook, and we did fine. And then I'd been tracking everything. Well, we've always tracked every incoming phone call, so I know who's calling, what neighborhood, and how they heard about us. I've always set it up that way because I need to know how they're hearing about me. So I knew how each individual one was working. Well, I was watching Valpak go over a cliff, and I couldn't figure out what had changed. So I kept looking to see what was going on, and about that time is when you came along and you basically reinforced kind of what I already knew and gave me the push. But because of the trust that I have in you, which says a lot because I pretty much trust nobody, Linda and I talked about it, and we decided to take the plunge. And we did it, and I'm not sorry, and it's been a great return on investment. You know, happy with who I'm working with. They do a great job for us. And the biggest thing is we have actual, you know, scientific data that tells me what's going on. Before, I would have to look at the end of the month of all the tick-offs. You know, we have a cut sheet. We have cut sheets for everything. One of the ones is sitting next to the phone. So everybody who answers a phone, they'll ask, you know, how did you hear about us, you know, et cetera, et cetera. What type of appointment were you looking for, you know, and so we check all that stuff off. So I'll check it at the end of the week, and at the end of the month I'll tally it up, and I'll see what's trending. And then I'll try to see if that had anything to do with, you know, weather-related issues or anything else, or time of the year, and then that's just something else I like to analyze. Excuse me. But getting back to your original question, yeah, it was, I guess, you know, a little scary, but because I knew it wasn't working and I don't like throwing money down a rat hole, I was ready to take the plunge. So I just kind of closed my eyes and jumped. And there's been a few times in my business career that you've had to do that and hope for the best. And fortunately, I've always landed on my feet.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's like I said, I consider that was, you know, a really, because what I saw was you starting to look at the client you needed to truly bring you the return. You figured out that it was not just making the phone ring, it was making the phone ring with the right people that were your core customers that you could identify with.
But see, here's the problem. I knew everything that Direct Connect drilled down and told me. I already knew. I've lived here my entire life. I know where the money is in Anne Arundel County, and I knew who they are. The problem was the only way to do it was the shotgun effect of buying a zone. Well, now we've got something that will drill down even farther, that, you know, we're hitting the client we want, not just because they're in a certain neighborhood. So before it was kind of like carpet bombing of a good area and hoping for the best. Now we're going to the individual homes in that zone that we want to hit and not have to send out so many mailers. So the return on what we're spending is much higher. The close rate is higher. It's kind of like the old joke of they used to ask John Dillinger, why do you rob banks? And his answer was, well, that's where the money is. Well, that's what I want to do. I want to go to where the people have not necessarily the money in that respect, but they have the right mental attitude to understand, chimney maintenance, the importance of it, keeping their chimney healthy, keeping their family healthy, and being willing to listen to what we have to say. My guys are smart. We have the technology on the truck to show them up close and personal what's going on. Isn't Billy Bob rolling up with a beat-up truck just saying, yeah, I'm going to run a brush through there. It's not like that anymore. We're technicians. We're no different than the guy that comes in and, works on your HVA system. And, we want them to respect us and listen to what we have to say. So we need to find that target audience that is looking for what we're selling.
Yep. Well, Chuck, this is, like I said, it's just really, and the value we're putting out here today, I think, is truly, I'm hoping it's truly inspiring to people. Well, listen, in the last year, you stepped up to the plate even more. And maybe I pushed you on this. Maybe I suggested your name to people, but you stepped up really big in the last year in industry involvement. You're sitting on industry boards. You're now involved with CSIA. You're involved with Hearth NFI. You're involved in charge of a brand new certification program that's under work right now at CSIA. You're working with Hearth. You recently had a meeting with the president of HPBA. You're becoming a man on the move that's making changes for an industry. So what made you make this decision to step up to the plate on this end? Because, again, just a couple of years ago, you were sitting in the back of the room and really didn't want anybody to even know who you are. So what caused you to do this, Chuck?
Well, you're correct. I like being stealth. And you're also correct that, as sometimes Linda likes to tell me, Jerry is the monkey with the wrench. Basically, it was all timing. It was between meeting you and your push, and then also something a little bit in me kind of telling me there's something else I need to do. You're right. After about 20 years of keeping my head down and kind of plowing forward, I kind of realized it was time for me to give back to an industry that had provided my family with a very comfortable lifestyle. My first involvement was with John Pilger asked me to be on the CSIA CEU committee. And I thought that was really neat because I'm an education guy, always have been. And that way I got to review the classes with, a couple of other people to decide whether it was a class that was reasonable and how to divide the category on how to award CEU credits. So that was pretty cool. And then the next thing that happened, John asked me to become chairman of a committee called Educational Development, which didn't exist before. So since it didn't exist, the first thing I started doing was interviewing a lot of people, a lot of historical people that were what I call the founding fathers, Vic M. Gardner, yourself, Tom Urban, to get kind of a handle on, where we were educational-wise, what was your view, kind of like the Supreme Court when they're deciding a case, they want to go back and say, what was the intent? What did the Founding Fathers want from this? And see if that was still our mission. And if it was, then have we come off track? Or, do we need to refine this, or are we right on course? So that was something that I did a couple of large reports for the board of directors and told them where I think we need to move to. And I think a lot of the things they were pretty receptive to, and we started to move in that direction. Basically, our industry, as I said earlier, has evolved. It's not what it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We are more professional. We are technicians now, and we need to behave like technicians, and we need to provide the right kind of educational delivery system so the people who are engaged in this industry can service our clients and meet their needs. Basically, and after that, they asked me to be on the board of directors of CSIA, which I accepted. Mark Stoner appointed me to his board, And I was very grateful to help him and Chuck Hall. Chuck Hall is the vice president, because three of us have very similar views on how we should be moving forward. And it's a pleasure to work with them and help them accomplish that goal. Once I was on the board of directors, then they asked me to be the liaison and be on the board of governors for the HPBEF, which is the Hearth Patio Barbecue Educational Foundation, which is basically the educational arm of HPBA. And that's been a great experience. There's a lot of really, really nice people that I've got to meet on that side, which is a little bit different because they deal more with appliances than actual just, chimney repair and maintenance and liners. And that gives me a different view of where they're coming from. But there's a lot of overlap between the two industries that we could be working together on. But, getting back specifically to education, it kind of, education is the key to success on so many levels. It gives you or your employees a satisfaction and sense of accomplishment. It gives you the ability, or your employees the ability, to explain intelligently to clients a way to solve their chimney performance and maintenance issues. You have confidence then in your inspection and communication skills, and report writing. As far as education, CSIA certification and continuing education is the best return on investment a business owner can make for him or herself and his employees. You've got to remember, informed employees are more confident, they're more engaged, and they produce for the company, and that makes you profitable. This is something that we want to reinforce at CSIA. I've been doing it for years, and I'm trying to bring that to the table for them to become, our normal way of doing business and making, our clients, which are the certified sweeps, knowing what's going on. I guess, as you can tell, I'm real passionate about education.
Well, it is, Chuck.
But I believe education is your commitment to excellence.
And that's the whole thing, Chuck. I see things in people, and I see you, and I think more and more people, as they see, when you first came on the board, probably you felt like people weren't receptive, and you see a definite trail, and you're ready to move, and you're talking about strategies, talking about other things. What I see is this is building you into truly being a significant leader in this industry going forward, and you're a guy willing to donate your talents, and that's just part of the package that I think make you and Linda, because it takes the support of Linda for you to do this, correct?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I wouldn't be able to do it without her.
Yeah.
And she, getting back to trust, she's the only person that I'll trust to leave here to run the operation, because sometimes I have to go away for like a week at a clip.
Right. Well, that's what I tell people about when I decided to do what I'm doing now. My number one supporter was my wife. And my wife, we're doing that, so people know we're doing this on a Sunday morning. And the reason being, it fit into the schedule for all of us. But, I've been gone since last Sunday. I got home on Saturday, spent some time. My wife went to breakfast, and now I'm here. So it takes that support to really go there. And I think that's part of where the relationship of business, personal, life partners, business partners. My wife runs a manufacturing business. That's her. That's not me. I was involved with it one time. And that's what I see is so unique about you guys, where you fit everything together. So let me ask the question, and either one of you can come up with the answers, whoever. But what's the major challenges that Chuck and Linda and the business face going forward?
Well, Jerry, to add one thing into what you were talking about sacrificing and, Cheryl sacrificing, I'll one-up you. It's our 24th anniversary today.
Really?
And we're spending it with you and Cheryl.
Hey, who would you rather be with, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, that's the kind of insanity that we do here. So, okay. But, yeah, I'll go ahead and let Linda start.
Jerry, I think one of the major challenges, especially with like our industry, is educating the public of chimney performance and maintenance and how important it is. to their family's health and their home and protecting their investment. A lot of people really don't take their chimney seriously, and I think we take it upon ourselves, and the industry needs to take upon themselves of leading the path to informing the public of this and giving them the right information. Most people are getting confused because you have people that are not certified that are telling people customers conflicting information, and then that confuses the customer, which then the customer doesn't know who to believe, and so that's, I think, an overall major issue that not just in this area, but I'm sure other fellow chimney sweep companies go through. So that seems to be one of our major challenges. Another one is employees. Finding good employees that are going to be motivated and enthusiastic. We've been really blessed with having a core group of people that are lead CSI certified technicians, and we're very proud of them. They are a great team, and they're very team oriented. They believe in the clean sweep way, and I think that helps us be able to work with our clients, and that's why we have such a good repeat client base. But you also are always looking for new people, and so that seems to be a big hurdle because nobody wakes up saying they want to be a chimney sweep every day. And so we working with the chimney industry and helping educate and get the word out of how important everything is what we find is a big hurdle.
Okay, Chuck, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say lastly, a big hurdle is overcoming public perception and the lack of respect of our profession. And a lot of this is unfortunately due to our customers viewing our industry as a commodity. They do not have an understanding of the value or the need for chimney care, and it's our job to tell them. People don't understand that they're having a fire in their home, so sometimes I really wonder, why are you trying to bargain with me? Why would you look for, Billy Bob's bargain sweep to inspect your system or to sweep your system but not inspect it? I get people that still call for that. Well, can you just sweep it? I don't want it inspected. And I laughingly think to myself, yeah, why not? You're just having a fire in your living room, and it's only your family and your home you're gambling, but it's the perception. And it's a lot of times it's what we've done to ourselves in this industry, unfortunately, and we need to make it right.
Okay. Well, let me throw this out. So, again, this is what you're doing in business. I know right now we have a new person there who's been with you, and you've decided to elevate him to a position of a truck leader. And unlike other people that will maybe send them to a one-day class or may even go to send them to the chimney sweep school in Indiana, your choice is to bring an instructor in for at least 1 week of solid one-on-one training with the new guy, taking them through basic sweeping, sales, taking them through diagnosis, documentation, and you guys also probably are a large client of mine for educational services. We do education in your in-house training center. We have a room there set up that we can do webinars from my home to you, and I come there, and we may do a half a day, we may do a full day, we may do 2 or 3 days. I know right now we're talking about taking them through gas training and different things, and you will bring this training in-house, but you've run the ROI on this. So tell me a little bit about your background and your beliefs on why do you do this, Chuck?
Well, what I found out is while a lot of the classes at conventions and what we have at the training school are good, sometimes it's a lot more economical to have an instructor come in and spend time here. I have the facility to do it. My training room is 20 by 25. It's climate controlled. We have, big screen TV, computers, everything that you would need in a classroom setting we have here, so it's very comfortable. My guys sometimes, depending on what they're being taught, will learn better if it's being delivered pretty much directly to them, whether it's one-on-one or whether I have 3 or 4 guys sitting in a class. It helps retain it better. You can get on a personal level with them. And that's what helps if you have the right instructor. If they know my guy's personality, they know how to push the buttons. That's what you're a master of. You know my guys very well. You know how to talk to them. And they hang on every word that you say, which the good part for me is they retain it and they can apply it and they can put it to the real world. So that's why we started bringing people in here. I've had, besides yourself, I've had marketing people come in and do classes for my guys talking about sales and things like that as well. And it helps to have somebody come to my facility and spend the one-on-one time with them and focus in on our needs for my area and my mission as opposed to just a generic platform. So that's why I do it. And then what I see is when these guys go through this, they can apply most of it. And of course we do continuing education on it where Linda's real good about honing in on, certain aspects of, the classes, and she'll make up like a cheat sheet. And then, maybe a week or 2 later, we'll start quizzing them. Hey, have you tried to employ this? How's it working? That's where we'll start. And then we'll come back and we'll hit them with some questions. Well, what did you do here? Why didn't you do this? Don't you remember this part of the class? Oh, you did? Did it work? Did it not work? Sometimes we need, because of the area we live in, to maybe massage what they learned a little bit. So it just gives us a way to really, almost be one-on-one tutored, but usually it's in a group of 5 or 6 people.
Okay, Chuck, a lot of times, and I've heard other clients tell me this, and and you may feel the same frustration. Is it a frustration when you can tell your men something and I can tell them something, and sometimes it sinks when I tell them and it just glosses over their heads? How have you faced that frustration to move forward?
Well, that's something that you just have to come to live with because, I always relate it to the Charlie Brown cartoons where, the adults never sound normal. It's wah, 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 wah. And that's, I think, sometimes what they hear from myself, and sometimes they hear it from Linda. And it's because we're in their face every day. And, it's just like, growing up, your parents would do stuff. Well, you were living with your parents 24/7. So 3/4 of the stuff you knew what they were going to say, and you let it go in one ear and out the other. And that's, unfortunately, you become a parent role sometimes. So I don't think that that's unique to my guys by any stretch. And I think that it's a normal behavior. So that's another reason that if you've got the right person to come in. Now, I will tell you this. I don't know if it's, I can only tell you about the world I live in and my guys. And whether they're unique or not, I don't know. But my guys' personality is they don't like a lot of people when we go to training. And a lot of stuff doesn't always stick, and I have to constantly go over it with them again. And it's based on the instructor's personality and delivery system. And the problem is they've been spoiled by you. You're one of those unique people that develop a lesson plan based on your audience. And as I said earlier, you know how to push their buttons. You motivate these guys. You impress them. They respect you. Therefore, it sticks. They pay attention. There's other people that we've had, whether it's in-house or joint training that we do with some other companies in the area, that some of the stuff doesn't go over all that well. And it doesn't really stick to them. So, they'll get maybe half of what they should have gotten. And fortunately, I take very good notes, so then I'll try to fill in the missing holes. but it's kind of like watching a bad movie. You know, you just can't really get into it. You're never a bad movie.
Yeah.
You're kind of like comedy and action and drama all rolled into one.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that I enjoy, because I feel like everywhere I go, Chuck, and you know, I've been to 2 other clients in the past week. I spent 3 days at one, 2 days at another, and yeah, and one of the things I love about my job is I get to develop relationships, not just with you and Chuck, you and Linda, but I feel like I get to develop relationships with your guys. And I mean, you know, your guys, it's true, you know, they really, from my, you know, they seem to really enjoy it when I come in. They don't fight it. They're with me. And I think, you know, hopefully what I'm teaching them improves their personal lives. You know what I'm saying? I know that's one of the things we've dealt with, is how for them to do and bring budgeting, Dave Ramsey processes, all the different things where they can accumulate their homes, nice cars, live well. You know, that's the kind of things that really makes it all worthwhile to me. I hope you agree.
Oh, without a doubt. And sometimes you just have to show them the way.
Yeah. So let me ask you one final question. I'm gonna let you kind of say anything you want to after that. I've been involved with you a couple years, Chuck, and so tell me, what has coaching done for you? How has this maintained where my services are an investment, not an expense, if you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, you're definitely an investment, you know, and not taking, you know, taking this as a negative. You're another tool in my arsenal that I need. You know, it's kind of like what I touched on earlier. You have to surround yourself with people to move to the next level. You know, you can only go so far. As far as I'm concerned, you are the smartest guy in the chimney and venting industry, and I've known you or known of you for 20-plus years. I've seen you teach. I know your vast knowledge of the industry, your history of the industry. I know that you're an expert witness, you know, in court cases. I knew you'd be a good advisor and a mentor, and I knew you would make me a better business person and help me move my business to the next level. So to me, it was a no-brainer to approach you to find out, you know, to do an analysis, find out where I stood, and find out my weaknesses and know how to address them so I can keep moving forward. As I said earlier, you cannot be stagnant.
Okay. Linda, what about from your aspect? Because sometimes I tell, I think I've told you before, and Chuck, I think what your investment is or expense to me pays off because I get to hear Chuck's frustrations. But let me, from your aspect, has coaching been helpful for the company and for y'all?
Yes. It's hard enough running a business on your own and, you know, trying to deal with the problems and frustrations on a daily basis. You know, life is not perfect, and sometimes having somebody that's away from the situation or has experienced it before can give you a new set of fresh eyes or perspective or a different way of handling things or approaching a situation. It's also nice to know that you've got somebody that you can turn to that has different connections or contacts throughout other industries or other avenues that can help you look into, you know, if you wanted to add certain features to your company, you know, whether it's adding, you know, wood stoves or something like that, or getting into something with, you know, marketing, you know, having connections with Direct Connect. You know, it's just a wealth of having somebody that has a wealth of information that can provide you of, you know, here I've got something, you know, this is somebody that you should call. That is very valuable to any business. You don't feel like you're trying to reinvent the wheel or go on something all alone and, you know, go through and have, you know, some pitfalls and, you know, learn from those mistakes. You can get in the right frame of mind and go forward, seeing, using other people to help you, get yourself to the next level.
Wow.
So it's nice to know that you've got all these, support systems around you.
That's great. So before we close this webinar out, either one of you have any thoughts that you would like to share with people that are watching this that can possibly change their lives, change their businesses? It's an opportunity to speak to and maybe just change someone's total outlook. What would you say, either of you?
Well, the biggest thing I would say is you've got to have a budget. You've got to know your numbers. You've got to watch the cost of goods sold. You've got to watch time. And you can't stay in your own little cocoon. You've got to get out there, and whether it's join a mixed group, whether it's get active locally with your local chamber, you need to expand your vision or your boundaries a little bit. It'll be the best thing that you can do. Get some experience, and most importantly, they should hire you as a coach.
Well, thank you,
because you are Mr. Fix-It. So even though a lot of times you want to tell me, gee, I don't know why you have me, and you're so squared away, it's another arrow in my quiver that once in a while, sometimes, the stuff gets just so deep that, I can't see. I got so many things hitting me at once. I pick up the phone, I call you. There's never been a time that I couldn't get you unless you were in a training meeting or whatever, where if I didn't get you, you would call me within an hour. If I told you it was important, if I told you I just need to talk to you, I would hear from you within a couple hours or definitely that day. I could text you to let you know it was important. Sometimes, you have all this crap going on that things get foggy, and, you've got that 20,000-foot view, and you can come in and say, oh, don't worry about it. Here's what you need to do. Bing, bang, boom. I might have already known it, but having you tell me that reinforces it and kind of shakes me out of it. It's kind of like, you get tackled in a big pile on the football field, and coach grabs you by the shoulder, yanks you up, smacks you on the head, and says, all right, boy, get back in the game. And that's what you do as a coach.
Well, thank you, Chuck.
I think
Linda, what's your thoughts, Linda? What would you tell people to take them and make them a Linda Chuck Roydhouse team?
I think the biggest thing is you've got to know who your clients are and really look at them as sort of like your family, develop and have a relationship with your clients. That is so important in a business industry, that you've got to know who your clients are, want to help them, want to know what their needs are and help them solve any problems that they have. You want to be the person that when they have an issue, they want to, there's no question that they want to call you for the answer if they've got a problem. And so I want to stress that customer service is so important, and that's got to be your number one priority to be successful.
Well, folks, I'm going to tell you, y'all are truly phenomenal as a team, as people, as human beings, very good friends. And today is, I think the gold nuggets, and there's been a bag of them here. I mean, really, if people will listen to the advice you have given them in this podcast webinar, I think that if they can start instituting some of these, that they can go and, and truly get what they're wanting. Because like I said, it's like a source of pride for me to see people like you move and attain the levels, to build the relationship, I feel like we've established such a great relationship between you, myself. I know Cheryl and Linda have never met, but actually, they've got somewhat of a relationship. When our grandson recently went through some surgery, Linda did a phenomenal job doing some research to help us understand, and I appreciate that. And, we're going to draw into an end here today. This has been, I think, a phenomenal, truly exceptional podcast webinar with some great people, and they've shared with you the ideas. Like Chuck's Mixed Group has seen, purple is the new color of green. But the ideas that Chuck and Linda have shared with you today in this podcast, listen to it twice. Chuck gave you that advice. He listens to things and he keeps it and he listens to it again. Listen, learn from this. Decide where you want to go. Decide how you're going to reach your dreams in life. If you've got a story that you think could help others, let me know. I would love to be able to feature you in a future podcast where you can share what you feel, your secret success with others. This is how we're going to grow to the levels that we all envision in life. And is there anything else you two guys would like to add before we end this?
No, I think I've talked enough. I don't usually talk this much.
Go Ravens.
Yeah, go Ravens.
Well, I don't think, I'd be honest with you, Chuck, I think this is the most anyone has ever heard you speak in this industry. And, it's like getting you out. It's hard to believe right now, sitting this deep in this webinar, that you've had this much to say, not caught out of guard, willing to share. I cannot envision 3 or 4 years ago you participating in this. And to me, that says that is worlds of what you've advanced to and what's going to make you a true leader in the future and what's going to make you and Linda such exceptional people. And I want to thank y'all very sincerely. And yes, I did not even realize it was your anniversary today. So that makes it even more special. So you two go enjoy your anniversary. I'm going to end the recording now. And if we can help you at CBC Coaching, let us know. A phone call costs you nothing to get to know us. We'll be glad. You can go to our website. We now have a self-analysis form on there. And you can ask yourself the questions and decide if you're reaching your dreams. And if we can help you reach your dreams, give us a call. It's just an invitation to get to know each other. And if I'm not the right person for you, which, that may be, then certainly seek the right mentor in life that works with you well, because, everyone's got to have that right connection in life. So, Chuck and Linda, I want to thank you very much. And to all the people tuning in, thanks for your time. Let us know if these podcasts are of value to you. And I thank you again from CBC Coaching.